You know, this view is pretty special. I'd be enjoying it a lot more if it wasn't freezing. God, my hands are cold. Okay, what is happening, boys? Spectre here. I'm going to close my visor for the wind. You join me on a really cold day with my Honda Magna. So for those unfamiliar with the channel, this is a Honda VF750C Magna. It is a 1995 model. It is the third gen, the last gen Honda Magna, and it is the RC43 chassis, which is the best looking Magna they ever made, in my humble opinion. I'm up here freezing my hands off because I wanted to talk through some of the mods and modifications I've planned for this bike. I made this video before, but me being fairly ADHD, I can just ramble, and the entire video was just like, and also I'm doing this, and then there's this as well, and it was crap. So I've got my phone, I'm going to run through all the list of mods that I have done and will be doing. I'm just going to try and rattle through them to get an idea of where this bike's going to go in my ownership. I apologise if I'm breathing heavily. It's really cold. I apologise if I'm sniffing. It's really cold. Alright, now this list includes some boring, like, maintenance-y stuff as well, so we'll try and rattle through. First one, remount the reg plate. Reg plate was hanging off when I got it. It's now mounted-ish with 3M. Rust kill and paint the frame. This bike is actually quite good in the corners in terms of, like, clearance. If you look at the height of this peg here, you can really bank the fucker over, and with them being mid pegs as well, you can really get it over, and I don't, as you can tell from my chicken strips. Not working on that this year, but someone has bottomed the frame out. I think they've gone into a corner that's gone up, and then they've just bottomed the front of the frame out. So the frame had some, like, spare metal and a little bit of rust when I got the bike. I gave it a rust treatment and I've painted it with Hammerite. There's plenty of stuff that still needs doing. That's an ongoing thing, is trying to improve the paint and keep it from rusting away on me, because obviously I live in the southwest and we have salt everywhere. Mirrors. Before me, the bike was owned by my little YouTube bestie, the Road Warrior 96. In his ownership, he had these mirrors that were really not very nice. Sorry, mate, he's going to watch this. They were just a bit horrible. They were like Matrix sunglasses. They were really narrow, and like I hated them. It wasn't so much the width, it was the height, and I couldn't see where I was looking, you know. I didn't like them, so I told him straight away. I was like, look, I'm going to be taking the mirrors off, and he was like, oh, well, actually they're quite expensive, do you mind if I keep them? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So the bike came to me with no mirrors. If you remember when I first got it, I had these like black kind of pointy like cat eye mirrors. They're just mirrors I happen to have lying around. They weren't intended to be permanent. I didn't hate them, but they didn't suit the bike, so I've got these. These are cheap mirrors. You can see they're already rusting. These are like just sort of placeholders in themselves, but style-wise, they're quite close to the originals, so they fit the bike a lot better. They look a lot cooler. Eventually, I will probably upgrade them to proper Honda OEM mirrors, but they're cheap, and they do the job for the time being. So, can't say fairer than that, really. And they've got a really big lens, that's another thing. I apologise for doing all of this from the front. I just can't be asked hiding with a plate, and I forgot to bring a rag to put over it. Yeah, they do the job. They've got a big lens, and they look the part, apart from the rust, and they're fine. They do the job. The next one's interesting. So, it's paint the cowl, and they get yellow paint mixed. So, this cowl, this is actually a Honda part. It's an official Honda OEM option. It came to the Road Warrior silver, because this bike is not originally yellow. This bike was actually purple. I don't know if it was solid purple or Honda made this like really cool two-tone white and purple variant. I'll put a picture on screen of this Magna. They look the biz, but I don't like purple generally, but they look cool. But at some point it's been painted, not particularly well, but it has been painted. And my friend ran into issues with that because he had the cowl painted yellow, but he went off a Honda paint code. So he got it painted like Honda yellow, like the one they use for that era of bike. And it just wasn't right. It was completely off shade-wise, and it looked rubbish. So he's just rattle-canned it black, which is what you see now. It's not a very good job. But he said it wasn't supposed to be. So, you know, you might better, I don't know how it will show on camera, but there's a few bits I've touched up with literal Sharpie. It's fine for now. And actually, I thought I was going to hate the black. I did for a while. This sticker, tying a bit of yellow into it, really helped. Really has, actually, I'm quite fine with it now. The only issue I have with the black cowl is, it's not so bad here, but if you park against a dark background, the chrome and the yellow are so bright, the cowl just gets lost into the back. It just looks a bit naff. So eventually I'm planning to get that painted yellow. That's going to be quite a long-term thing though, because, you know, it's quite expensive getting paint colour matched. I'll have to take the cowl and one of the side panels and get them like visually matched yellow, and that's that's really expensive. I got a quote recently, and to be fair, I didn't even reply to this guy because it was so outrageous, but he wanted £370. £370 British pounds to paint this, what was this, a foot square cowl yellow. And in his email he was setting himself up for failure. He was starting to like do this whole spiel of like, oh well, you know, it's really hard to colour match yellow, and there's no guarantee it will look the same. You know, fuck, I didn't even reply to the guy. Eventually I would love that to be yellow, and we're going to come on to some other stuff a little bit later in the list about like decals and designs and stuff, but that cowl in yellow matching the rest I think would really just finish the bike off as a silhouette, like visually. God, my hands are cold. Right, let's rattle through. I don't want this video to be like 20 minutes long as well, and God, it's cold. Okay, thermostat. We thought the thermostat wasn't working because the fan wasn't turning on. It does turn on, but the engine's just really efficient, so it takes quite a while for it to get hot enough to think it needs the fan, and the fan is silent when it does turn on, so actually that was fine. Spare key, came one key. I've got a key cup which is about a mile long. It's like a door key because the guy didn't have any Honda ones, like little bike ones in stock. So it's fine. It works. It serves a purpose. Eventually I'll get an actual like Honda length one cut, but that's what it is. Tax MOT insure. Oil and filter. Obviously I had a service when I bought it, just because I service every bike. Tank decals and tank strap. So as you can see, it's currently missing all decals. The Honda Magna, there's two variants of stock tank decal. I'll put them both on screen now. One of them's this like really American, kind of like jazzy, pop arty, like quite, you know, big and quirky and a bit like garish. It's a bit, I don't know, I don't like it very much. It doesn't suit the bike for me. I'm not a big fan of America as a concept, so that's probably not going to be the one. The other one looks a lot nicer. It's a lot more Japanese. It's a lot sleeker and simpler. It just says like Magna and then Honda beneath it, and that looks really cool, except it's silver. I don't think it's going to pop against the yellow enough. So what I'm probably going to get done is I'm going to just go to a decal company, get them to make up a few like black vinyl stickers. I want Magna down the tank and quite big, like taking up the entire tank in a cool font, maybe like an official font or something like that. I want 750 on the side panel. I want V4 on the whatever that is. That an airbox? I don't even know. I haven't taken it off yet, but those little chrome pods. There's one on each side. I've seen it with V4 on that before, and it looks the biz. So that would be really cool, because right now nobody knows what it is, which I quite like, because it is so rare. I mean, talk about rare, this bike is one of 17 third generation Magnas in the UK. One of 17. There was about 26 sold. Like, it's outrageously rare, which is a ball ache when you don't get parts for it. As I mentioned before, there is nothing in the UK. A lot of this list is quite conceptual, because it's like, if I need a part I have to import it from either America or Europe, both of which are really expensive because Brexit. So a lot of this stuff is like long-term plans, and I'm planning to keep this bike for a really long time, to be fair. I say that with every bike and generally don't, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'd love to get some decals made up. My housemate has a mate who runs like a dirt bike graphics company, like it's custom graphics kits for dirt bikes. He said you could put me in touch with him, so I might speak to him and try and like, can we do like a whole like jazzy, you know, black onto the yellow kind of decal kit, like a number on the side somewhere, like a, you know, be really cool. And something else I'm considering is, particularly once the cowl is yellow, is doing stripes down the center, like twin black kind of Bumblebee Camaro type stripes the whole way down, and I think that would look really cool, like going, you know, over the front fender, over the cowl, and then all the way down. That would tie in really nicely with the black side decals as well. I'm not planning on chroming this up. I'm planning on sort of keeping with a yellow and black theme throughout. And later in my list I've got paint the wheels. You're not going to be able to see on camera, I don't think, but the wheels, like the aluminium cast, and then the lacquer's like gone a bit mank, like it's all kind of like oxidized. It's not the metal oxidizing, it's actually it's the clear coat. So they need, it's worse on the back, but they need repainting really. And what I'd like to do is the hub and the spokes in black to match the rest of it, and then go to like black to like this lip maybe, and then keep the outer dish silver, like bare metal silver with click obviously. But I think an issue you have with black wheels quite a lot, more so on cars than bikes, but even generally, is the black wheel goes into the black tyre, into the black wheel well shadow, and it just becomes this like smudge, and you just kind of lose all the detail of it. So if you keep that ring of silver to separate the two, I think it looks a lot better. I think you have a lot more fun with it. The next one on the list is rack brackets custom. So you'll see at the moment I've actually just taken the pillion seat and the sissy bar off the bike just to clean the back up. Honda, very nicely, they've styled the rider seat so that it's designed to look cool by itself, and then you can optionize. Okay, you can optionally have the pillion seat on. You can see it just leaves that bung there. It looks really cool, but if I'm going camping and stuff, I'd like a rack for it, and there are two options for that really. I can get a rack for the back of my sissy bar, which is just a little, you know, just one of those little racks that sits back there, or I can get a whole new sissy bar, and they do make sissy bars in black for this, so you'd have like a black sissy bar with the black rubber, black leather pad, the black rack, and that would tie into the theme quite nicely. Or I could make my own. So the design I sketched up, this is a very basic design, because at the time that I was proposing this, I was hoping to get a mate do the welding for me, and he's not a very good welder, so I tried to keep it as like sort of dumbass proof as possible. But the design was, I'll put it on screen, it's supposed to be a flat rack with the idea that I can put my big roll bag for camping lengthways on the bike, so like down the length of the bike instead of across it. And then your profile, your front profile of the bike stays really narrow and sleek, because this bike is dense. It's like there's a lot going on, but if you look at it from the front, it's not a big wide cruiser. It's quite compact, and I like that a lot. I did this rack, and it would use the two fender brackets, mudguard brackets on each side, and the pillion bracket, and it would sit there and just be a flat like shelf. It wouldn't look that nice, but it will be practical for camping. I will leave it off the rest of the time. You can also, a lot of the like Harley like Sportsters, they have a little like kind of like shovel blade kind of thing here, and that would be quite cool as well. It's ways to add a little bit of practicality without just spoiling the look. I'm not going to put a top box on it or anything like that, you know what I mean? It'd be nice to be able to strap camping gear and shopping, whatever, to it. And that's the other issue as well. If I keep the sissy bar and do a sissy bar rack, there's nothing to strap to on this bike. Like, this is solid, more or less, on both sides. You can't strap to the fender, obviously, so you can't put a bungee on it. Like, there's nowhere, you know what I mean? you can't attach anything. I managed to write with camping. I think I had straps coming off the foot pegs, and then like managed to pull it down into the rack, but it's not great. So if I had my custom rack, you could at least bungee to the rack, and you've got a lot more like hook points to attach to. Let's jump back in as the wind picks up. God, my hands. Sat-nav mount, obviously. Trusty TomTom sat-nav, the Urban Rider 400. I've been using it for years. It's fine, you know, it's a bit slow to update. I've got this issue where it's at some point it's got condensation between the screen, like between the screen elements, and when I get sun on it from behind and it heats it up, the screen bubbles, and like it's not damaging it, but it's enough that it's kind of annoying because you can't quite see the map through the bubble. So I don't know if I'd recommend it. Like, it's a good sat-nav. I'm very, very happy I got it. I was lucky enough to get gifted it by my sister for Christmas many years ago, and it's still doing good, and it's got lifetime maps, UK and Europe, and that's great. Make your own decisions. I haven't tested enough other sat-navs to have comparisons. I don't use my phone on the bike because I don't want to just shit my camera up, and I can't afford to fix it if I do. So, you know, there is that. That goes on to the next one, which is USB. So I've currently not got any power on the bike. There's two options that I can either power this, it does come with wires, but I'd have to put my own terminals on, but I could power that in, or I could just fit a USB socket, which is what I've done in the Bonneville. I actually fitted, like, you won't see it on this bike, but I fitted it into the headlight bracket. It kept it all really hidden and hidden away. So I think on this bike, I can go under the tank, and then I can fit a USB socket like maybe here, or like behind this, or even up onto the cowl, or onto the stanchion here, just so it's out of the way, and then I can run a cable just straight through there to the sat-nav, and that would probably be the best option for it. Fit a sign bomb. I've got a Denali Sign Bomb Mini, which is a lovely loud, deep, bassy horn. This is a stock horn. Unfortunately, the way they've designed this, it's a real pain getting that bolt off, and I've not been able to yet, so I've not been able to take the bracket off to put the new horn on. So that's going to have to come in the future, but it would be nice to have my Denali Sign Bomb because it's a great horn. It's loud, it's deep. People think it's a car, so they panic and look at you, but they tend to give a shit if it's a bike horn. It's really good. Like, I've been riding along in the left lane of like a dual carriageway. I've had a big like 7.5 ton truck try and merge into me. I've just bounce them off with the horn, just deflecting them away, and it's really good. But it's just a horn, like it's not a compressor, it's not an air horn, it's not drawing a bunch of power, it's just an ordinary horn in a clamshell designed differently. That's going on at some point. Tint the cowl windshield. So this is not something that I'm doing now, but when this goes to yellow, it would be nice if the screen had just a light smoke to it, like a little bit of like a black smoke. And again, that ties into like the yellow with the black, and it sort of brings that all through. And it'd be quite nice. Purely for aesthetics, the cowl is too low to look through. You're not tucking down over the tank. It's not a sports bike, but I think that would look quite nice. Span adjust levers, again, like a lot of these are little things. They don't really need to happen, but these levers are perfectly adequate. The stock levers, but they are just stock levers. It would be nice if they had the adjuster here, just to bring them a little bit closer, a little bit nicer. Maybe get them in black as well, who knows. But a lot of this is like little bits of tart that don't really do much, but it's just nice to put your own taste on a bike, you know. Like, I don't want to go to a bike meet and see 3 bikes that look the same, because that's not the point of biking. Bike is supposed to be about expression. Obviously, I've got one of the rarest bikes in the UK at this point, so I'm kind of ticking that box already. You're not going to see another Magna. This is the first Magna I've seen in person ever. Front mudguard extender, that one's not a fun one, but just a little, you know, down there. As you can, I don't know how well you better see on the camera, but the underside of the engine gets absolutely toasted by just mud and dirt and crud, and it's quite an annoying shape. There's a lot of like layers to it, and the casting's got a lot of like creases and crevices. It's a really annoying thing to clean, and my downpipes at the front there are just minging. So it'd be nice to just have a little fender extender, not too crazy, not to spoil the side profile too much, but just a little black lip on there just to bring it down a little bit more would be lovely. Fork gaiters as well. So that one's, it's practical, it's going to protect my forks. My forks are actually really nice currently. They're not, there's a few chips higher up, but they're actually, I don't know if they've inverted the stanchions at any point, but they're really good currently. But to keep them good, it'd be nice to have some just rubberized, you know, Corsatina gaiters like I had in the Bonneville. But as a bonus, so I mentioned that the bike is really dense, and what I mean by that is, you look at it, it's there's a lot going on in quite a small space, because it's got the V4 and then the V-twin. It's the same on both sides. You got the twin, you got the 4x4 exhausts, the big wide cylinders, because it's obviously double width compared to a V-twin. It looks heavy apart from that front end, which is kind of spindly and a bit thin. You got the massive fender at the back, quite a big tyre. It's all heavy, and they got these little teeny tiny forks. So I think just having those rubber gaiters on there will chunk up the front and also bring a little bit more black in while removing a bit of silver, which is always nice. You might be able to see my lower fork arms are really pitted. They've got a lot of like, they're quite worn. So it'd be nice to one day to maybe get these refinished, either in silver like this, or do them in black as well and black in with all of that. Part practical, part aesthetics on that one, but I've not done it yet because obviously to fit fork gaiters properly without cutting the back and like zip tying them, you have to drop the forks, and fucking can I not be asked for that. So that can wait. I think that will wait until I have to do the fork seals ever, and then at that point when they're coming off anyway, then I'll finish off that. Crash bars, now that's another difficult one. Is there's a lot of crash bars for this bike, but if you look at it from the front, it's so narrow. What I don't want are the big, like the hoops that come out to like here, and then they go across there, and they connect in. There's mounting holes at the front to connect into, but it makes the bike so wide and heavy, and it's not that sort of cruiser for me. They make some that are just a little kind of U-bracket here, and that's partly for practicality, because like I say, there are no parts for this bike, so it'd be nice to know that if I ever drop it, I'm not going to shit my engine up or the tank more than it already has. There's a little dent there, if you can tell. But also, I want a crash bar because I want to hang a bunch of stuff off them, namely lights. So I want spotlights on both sides, and what I actually really like are, you know, those off-roading ones where it's like black with the yellow lens. I think that would look really fucking cool against the black and the yellow, with you got the black and yellow spotlights just here. And they're not going to do a great deal to light up ahead of you, although it will help because this headlight's not very good. It's mainly for the aesthetics, and it would look really cool. And then aside from that, I'm also going to put in the highway bars. So put in some just black foot pegs, fold down, and with it being mid controls, you don't have a huge amount of leg room, and I don't do long distance really, but it would still be nice to be able to just like, just here, just have a foot peg here, and just have the option of just stretching out if you want. Similar to that, I mentioned a couple of those footrest spotlights, brighter headlight bulb. I don't want to do one of the LED like plugins. I think they look a bit gash, although they're undoubtedly really good. What I've considered is one of the brighter headlight bulbs, just like the straight plug-in. You know, they're always called like Daybreaker or like Night Sight or whatever. One of those fucking things where it's still bright. It's not an LED bulb because obviously that's illegal. Just a little bit brighter so I can see where I'm going, but still yellow. I don't want a blue light because it will look shit with all the rest of it. So I want a yellow light still. Whether or not I get a brighter light and then just put a yellow film over the headlight and do a sort of Frenchy, you know, which would actually like work because we think, my mechanic thinks this bike is a French bike originally. There's French on the VIN plate. He thinks it's a French import. It's not officially listed as an import anywhere. HPI or like any paperwork. I always thought the Honda Magna was sold in the UK in small numbers. It might actually be, he thinks it isn't, and it's not in his, like, he's got one of those mechanics like dictionaries, like where you go through and it tells you all the facts and figures and like torque specs and stuff for every bike, and you can just flick through and find whatever you're working on. And this bike's not in there. So he says that means it's not a UK model. Quite where the truth is now, I don't quite know. It might be one of those where Honda sold them, but they're all technically imports by Honda, you know, one of those. Haynes, I always get Haynes manual for my bikes, partly because they're great, and partly because I'm creating a collection of all of my bikes in order in Haynes form. So when I've got a nice like man cavey garage, I'll have a shelf showing my history of bikes in Haynes. That'll be quite a nice thing to like look through the progress. I've considered a chain oiler. I've never had a chain oiler before, but chains annoy the piss out of me. This bike doesn't have a centre stand and it's really ass heavy, so like I recently got like a scissor jack and I can lift the bike but I can't lift the rear wheel off the ground because it's so ass heavy unless I weigh the front down. And I've got paddock stands and they're fine, but they're faff and I don't like using paddock stands really. So the chain is like, it's all right behind the exhaust, so you have to kind of like stick your mandible through between the exhaust and chain it, and then like roll it a bit and chain it, and yeah, bit of a faff. Heated grips. Now heated grips, bar and weights and sort of handlebars all come together as one. Nice. NX5 Mach 3, very nice. Jealous. I really like the look of these grips. You've got these standard like 90s Honda grips. You see these on everything. Shadows had these, like a lot of these big cruisers had them, and they're great and they're really comfortable. And this rubber in the middle, so it's got a bit of give, like a gym mat. It's got a little bit of give but not too much, so it's a good size and it fits my hand really nicely. Look how purple my fingers are going. I don't know if that's coming up on the camera. Christ. Okay, yeah, they're really comfortable, but I'd like heated grips for days like this where I didn't come out with my big gauntlets on. Probably should have. It's about like 7 degrees today and it's probably less than that up here with the wind chill. So I'd love to have heated grips. I had heated grips on my Versys. I had heated grips on my Bonnie. They're great. They make life a lot easier because instead of having to have big bulky gloves, you can have ordinary gloves and just heat the grip. You can go out on a sunny day with thin gloves on and be cool and enjoy it, and dexterous as well. But then when you're riding home after the sun's set and it's getting dark and it's cold, you can just click the grips on and just keep warm. I know you can get heated gloves now. I don't like the idea personally. Like, either you have a battery, which is a faff, and you have to keep charging it, or you have to plug into the bike, and I really don't like that. Like, I faff a lot getting on off the bike anyway. The idea of being plugged into the bike and having to constantly like unplug and plug yourself, that doesn't work at all for me. That's not how I want to be rocking it. So it has to be heated grips for me, and that gives me the full versatility to wear whatever gloves I want on top of them. And then also I want bar end weights, not so much for the vibration because it's a V4, there is no vibration, but because I'd like to at least try bar end mirrors, like underslung, like imagine like there, inverted square black mirrors here. I've had bar mirrors before and they're really, really good, particularly if you're a big guy like me. Ordinary mirrors tend to only show me myself, so when you're riding and you've got bar ends, you look through your arm and then back, and it's such a clear view. People always think, oh, they're really like, they don't look practical. They're actually arguably more practical than mirrors like that, and it would bring the bike's highest point down, the overall like silhouette. So the highest point will be the cowl, which will make it look sportier. But the stock grips have a cap on the end that spins with them, and the way the throttle body is, particularly the other side's not so bad, but the way that this side is, you kind of have to change like the grips and the bar ends and maybe even the bars themselves all as one, and it becomes like quite a small job becomes quite a big job quite quickly, and then you have to get different cables, and you know, it very quickly escalates. So I haven't done that yet, but that's on the list as well. And that is almost us, our show plate for times like this where I'm standing around being a wanky prick while everyone walks past judging me. It'd be nice just to have a plate that says Spectre that I can just like clip on there. Oh, peg sliders. So I actually don't know what the proper name for this is. I always call them hero pegs. Can I show you from this angle? Not really, but these foot pegs, they fold up and there's a bolt hole on the bottom to put your little, like, you know, your little nub in here, and that way if you touch them down, you touch down the sacrificial nub, the bolt, rather than ruining your peg. And again, there's no parts for this bike, so I don't want to scratch up these pegs. Not that I have, and not that anyone has. They're quite high for what they are, they're quite middle for what they are, and as a result, quite a hard thing to touch them down, particularly at the speed that I ride, which is not very fast, and you're not doing a track down it, right? So it's not been an issue yet, but I would like to just preempt it before I do. But again, that's just not something I've got around to yet. Put it away if you know the proper name for them, so I can Google them better. Let me know, because I've called them hero pegs. I think they're peg sliders. I like peg knobs. I don't know. Like it's something like that. But I'd like to just chuck some on there because it doesn't have any currently, and it's got provisions for them already. So I might as well. I could just chuck a bolt in there, I guess. Just stick a bolt and a couple of nuts in there to do that. I might do that actually, but I think the like intentional ones, they've got a rounded end, so when if you do touch them down, they don't just like dig in and yank you back, but they're a bit smoother on the run. Chain sprocket, it needs a chain sprocket. The chain is a little bit worn, the sprocket is quite a bit worn, and the chain on there is the wrong size, we think. Not like the wrong like profile, like literally the wrong length. The adjustment when I got the bike was so far forward, it would pull the adjuster, like, you know, those little like lines, it pulled them out of the like out of where they're supposed to be. Like it's not even close. Like it's like the chain is like 2 inches too short or something, if not more. It's getting better. Like as the chain slackens off and I adjust it back, I'm bringing the wheel backward. So like now I can get a nut onto it because it's brought the axle behind the exhaust finally. So it is getting better, but because it's slightly the wrong size, I think it's worn the sprocket in a bit of a weird way. So eventually it's going to need a chain sprocket. I've been doing quite low miles, so I'm probably going to get away with this summer on as it is, and then maybe like next winter I'll change it, but we'll see how we get on and see how many miles I get done this summer. If I start putting in like big mileage this year like I would like to, perhaps I'll have to do that sooner, but that's on the list as well. Paint wheels I mentioned, and finally, last but not least, before I let you go and before I fall down this hill of hypothermia, I'd love to get an exhaust. It's got the stock exhaust currently and it looks fantastic. I don't want to change the look at all, because it's got the 4x4 with the big chrome tips, and you've got these big thick pipes which don't tell anyone but are actually fake. These are just covers over a thinner pipe. The look is great. The look is great, but the sound is just, it's a bit quiet, it's a bit dignified, and I do like that sometimes. It means I can go through villages like pissing everyone off, and you know, there are benefits to a quiet exhaust. But I've heard some of these with like Cobra exhausts, and that V4 just like sitting there muscle carring away on its idle. It's got quite a choppy idle, like not in a bad way, but just a kind of like it's meaty and it's got rhythm to it. And it doesn't sound like a sports bike, it does still sound like a cruiser on idle. And then you pick it up into the rev range and then it becomes a screaming sports bike. And I just want to open it up a bit, but again, there's no parts. I'm not going to modify the stock exhaust, because people do that as well. They drill out the baffles and stuff. I've seen a few videos of those. They sound shit. I'm sorry. They sound awful. They sound tinny and rattly and crap. The actual proper purpose-made exhausts have better resonance. They're a lot like, they're louder without being crazy loud, and without having that like that harshness, you know, that like tinny harshness, like a 125 with a bean can on the back. But again, then you fall into like, this is a carburetted bike, so if I get the exhaust, I have to reject quad carbs. It's got 4 carburetors, because of course it does, and it's running really, really well right now. It's running really nicely, so I kind of don't want to fuck with it, because it's like it's really good, and like I kind of just leave it just as it is. It's fine. If it starts to run badly, we can look at it then. So yeah, we'll see. Like I mentioned, it's really hard to get parts for this bike, to the point where I've actually considered finding one with a bunch of mods on it, buying it, nicking the mods off it, and then resending it. So if I get one that's got like crash bars and exhaust and like, and you know, some bits and pieces, I can buy it and just fleece all their parts off and then go. But that is my bike. That is my Honda VF750C Magna. I love this thing. This thing's a beast. This is one of my favourite bikes I've ever owned. Absolutely adore it. Yeah, that is my bike. That's the mods list for this bike. That's what I'm planning to do to it. There is no time frame on any of that. It's not like, let's do that now. This is over the ownership of this bike. These are the things I'm currently thinking about. I guess I'll add some more bits and pieces on here and there. Maybe I'll put different shocks on because they're quite rusty. So maybe I'll get like a black shock with like a piggyback reservoir, and jack the back up slightly, and you know, there's options. There's all sorts of options. But I'm going to go and get somewhere warm. I'm going to let you guys go as well. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I appreciate the last 2 videos have been quite talky. Like, this has just been me standing here chatting shit, and then the last video was me talking about like ULEZ and bikes for a billion years. The next videos will hopefully be a bit more riding, a bit more like going places and doing stuff. We'll see what comes along. I'm hoping this weather gets better. We're slowly getting through, but like I say, it's raining all weekend, it's raining later. It's gonna be a while yet, but that's where we're at. So yeah, I'm gonna call that there. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and ride safe.